October 23rd, 1844. The sun rose exactly when it was supposed to. But for thousands of families, the future had completely vanished. They hadn't just lost their savings. They had deliberately destroyed their own lives. And they did it because they ran the math. At the center of this psychological wreckage was a farmer named William Miller. So what happens inside the human mind when the apocalypse simply fails to arrive? At the center of it was William Miller, a farmer and Baptist lay preacher from upstate New York, fixated on one line in the book of Daniel, a sanctuary cleansed after 2,300 days. Miller decided each prophetic day stood for a full year, ran the calculation for over a decade, and kept landing on the same window, 1843, maybe 1844. Christ would return. The present world would end. The faithful would be saved. He wasn't running a con, just a man who ran the math, believed it completely, and made one mistake. He told people, when his first window closed with nothing happening, the movement should have quietly died, the way most failed prophecies do. Instead, a preacher named Samuel Snow ran his own numbers and did what Miller never had. He named one exact day, October 22nd, 1844. No range, no maybe, a date you could circle. A vague warning sits quietly in the background for years. A date creates a countdown. The message spread through newspapers and enormous camp meetings, right in the middle of the Second Great Awakening, a period when the country was already primed for sermons about history reaching its final moment. Tens of thousands followed, and once a maybe turns into a date, belief stops staying quiet. It starts changing behavior. Farms sold for a fraction of their worth. Debts were forgiven, because why collect money you won't need tomorrow? Believers gave away tools, furniture, livestock, to neighbors who hadn't sold out their own faith yet. Some left crops unharvested, certain they'd never live to need them. Shopkeepers closed their doors mid-season and never reopened them. A man might spend 15 years building a farm and hand it over in a single afternoon, because keeping even a small piece of it back would mean admitting, if only to himself, that he wasn't entirely sure. You've probably heard the exaggerated version. Crowds in white ascension robes, families on rooftops waiting to rise into the sky. Most of that came from hostile newspapers, mocking the movement after the fact. The real version was quieter and more disturbing. Most believers simply waited in homes, churches, open fields, watching the sky. Every ordinary sound could have been the beginning. A gust of wind, a distant bell, a change in the clouds. Then daylight faded. Nothing. Midnight arrived. Still nothing. The sun rose again, right on schedule, over farms that no longer belonged to the people standing on them. One believer, Hiram Edson, later put the morning into words that still survive today. Our fondest hopes and expectations were blasted. He wrote that they wept until dawn. Others grew physically ill from grief. And then came the part nobody warns you about. The neighbors who'd been mocked for months finally got to mock back. Some believers couldn't show their faces in town for weeks. Meeting halls were vandalized. At least one church was burned. Families who had once prayed side by side stopped speaking to each other entirely, each one blaming the other for how far they'd gone. But the deepest damage wasn't financial, it was psychological. The prediction had stopped being just an idea. It had become an identity, deciding who could be trusted, who understood the truth, who would be saved. That's not incidental. Humans can't personally verify most of what they're told, so the brain relies on a shortcut instead. Trust the people who sound confident, especially once everyone around you already agrees. That shortcut likely goes back to small ancestral groups of 30 or 50 people, small enough that a wrong signal usually got caught within days. Confidence and consensus used to be fairly reliable because the group checking them was small, which is exactly why walking it back gets so expensive once you've joined that group publicly. Admitting the prediction had failed meant facing every sacrifice made because of it. The money, the work, the friendships, the warnings delivered with absolute certainty. Psychologists would later give that exact bind a name: cognitive dissonance, the mental strain of holding a belief reality has just contradicted. People don't all resolve it the same way. Many Millerites walked away entirely, quietly, never speaking of it again, some even changing their names to avoid the association. Some kept expecting Christ soon, just without naming another date, having learned the hard way what a specific date costs when it's wrong. And one small group reached a different conclusion. October 22nd had been correct after all, they said. They'd simply misunderstood what happened. Christ hadn't returned to earth. He'd entered an invisible phase of work, in a heavenly sanctuary instead. A failed prediction, quietly rewritten into a hidden success. That reinterpretation became part of the foundation of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, still millions of members strong today. That pattern didn't end in 1844. In 2011, radio broadcaster Harold Camping ran his own calculation and named May 21st as Judgment Day. Followers sold homes, spent savings on billboards warning strangers, quit jobs to spend their last month spreading the message. Some drove across the country in RVs plastered with the date, certain they were doing the most important work of their lives. May 21st passed like every other Saturday. Camping didn't abandon the prediction. He recalculated. New date? October 21st. That one passed too. He later admitted, in front of cameras, that he'd been wrong. A confident voice, a precise date, public sacrifice, failure, then a new explanation. 167 years after Samuel Snow ran the exact same play. It doesn't need religion to work. It's the crash that's definitely coming next week. It's the influencer sure the pattern in the market means something, because the math felt too clean to be coincidence. It's the group chat that suddenly agrees on something. None of them actually checked. It's the prediction that was technically correct, just invisible, once it didn't pan out the way anyone expected. Same wiring every time. A trust shortcut built for a room of 30 people, now wired into an audience of millions, who have no way to check the math themselves. The world did not end on October 22nd, 1844, but by sunrise, the prophecy was dead. The believers now faced a choice: abandon the prediction and admit every sacrifice had been built on a mistake, or protect the prediction by rewriting what failure meant. Some walked away, some rebuilt their lives. Others rebuilt reality around the belief. And that is the real warning of the great disappointment. A failed prophecy does not always disappear when the evidence arrives. Sometimes the belief survives the facts that should have killed it, because when people have sacrificed enough for an idea, the final thing they surrender may not be the idea. It may be reality itself. Hey, we can uncover the strange ways evolution still shapes modern life. Subscribe and join me, because the past is not really behind us. It still controls how we think, sleep, eat, and behave. And there is much more left to discover.